streets as part of a day of action protesting against tuition fees.
Sandy Hudson is the Ontario chair for the Canadian Federation of Students. She joins us this morning. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
So this is a big day for you guys. You know, there's always people who are saying, what are they complaining about? Everything goes up in price. That includes tuition. This is the reality. What do you say to that?
You know, tuition fees have been going up 300 times the rate of inflation in the last 6 years, so that doesn't really hold weight. And in fact, we have a situation here where we need students to be able to go to school. 70% of newly listed jobs require post-secondary education in Canada, and so we need to make sure that it's accessible. But what's happening here is that tuition fees are going up so much, and students are going into so much debt that it's becoming farther and farther away from the goal.
Another thing people say, Sandy, for why you, the student, should pay for your own education is that while a good post-secondary education benefits the country as a whole, the entire Canadian economy, the principal beneficiary is you, the student.
I would disagree with that. I think that everybody benefits, the entire society benefits from education. I mean, in some parts of this country we have a shortage of doctors. I think that part of the reason for that, and we have research to show this, is because people can't afford to go to med school. And then when that happens, when people do get into med school, they have so much debt that what they're trying to do is to specialize in programs that have a high return. And so we have a lack of family doctors. It's important for us to make sure that we're thinking about the economy as a whole when we're talking about access to education, because it's not just the individual who benefits. For sure, the whole of society benefits when folks have a good education.
Isn't the problem, though, I mean, if education is opportunity, because you mentioned 70% of jobs require a post-secondary education, right? So if education is opportunity, isn't it also about that equal access to have that opportunity in this country? What do we know about that? Do you have friends who simply cannot afford a university education no matter what loans they're able to access?
Absolutely, and we know also that the more debt that a student goes into, the less likely they are to graduate in the end. And even that doesn't make any sense, because it means that students who are poorer than the wealthier students end up paying more for their education through interest, even if they don't finish. So of course, when it comes to access and equity in access, people who are poorer or lower income from marginalized communities tend to have a harder time accessing post-secondary education than their peers.
I must say you certainly have a lot of sympathy from the boomers, because most of us, and I'm a boomer, who have helped our own kids go through university, we know that back in the day we could make enough money if we had a part-time job that we could do this without a whole lot of help. But how much help do you need now? How much money does a student need just to take an undergraduate year?
Well, I'll tell you that after coming out from post-secondary education myself, I finished my undergraduate degree in 2007. I had $33,000 of debt after 2 years of paying. I still have $29,400 to pay off, and $4.01 and 1 cent of interest each day.
I like how you've got the interest down to the penny. But you know what? That's what it's all about. It is about erasing that debt, because you have to move forward in your life. A lot of people can't even get to the point where they can pay for their tuition. I want to ask you about today, what today is all about. What's happening, and what will the end result be, do you think, on this? And I should, just before you answer that, in Ontario, there's been a move to lower tuition fees for at least some, right? Some who are within a certain amount of money. If you, as a couple or as a household, make more than $150, you pay the higher tuition. If you make less, I think it is, you get a lower tuition. Can you react to that?
That was the promise in the election, and it's our position that that promise has been broken. In fact, what has happened is that instead of a 30% reduction in tuition fees, the government is promising a grant to less than 2/3 of students in the entire province. The grant is worth less than 30% of tuition fees. And for those who aren't eligible, aren't just those whose parents make $160,000 or more, but it's those who are studying part-time, those in the most expensive programs, so law, dentistry, teachers college, and those who've graduated high school 4 years ago or more. And so there was this idea that the government had recognized that tuition fees were too expensive and we're finally going to do something about it. But that's not what they've done. We feel like we were deceived during the election as the government was trying to win votes from students. And so that's part of the reason why in Ontario we're going to see so many people out on the streets. But coast to coast, people are looking for some sort of standard of quality and standard of access for education across the country. In Ontario, we pay the highest tuition fees at just under $7,000. In Quebec, in Newfoundland, they pay closer to $2,500. This isn't fair, and we need some sort of standard. Similar to the Health Act, we're looking for a Post-Secondary Education Act.
Really? Okay, so we'll watch the protest today with interest. Thanks. Sandy Hudson is Ontario Chair for the Canadian Federation of Students. Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
Counting down to the Super Bowl and the television ads.
Have the first
But companies are releasing some of them early to get people, well, like us, talking about